Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to yet another edition of Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. And this past weekend, the annual National Football League draft held in Las Vegas. And as always, the Crimson Tide was well represented during the three-day event, 7 rounds. Alabama had 7 players drafted in this year's NFL draft. And, you know, I said this to you on my radio show Monday morning, Rodney. Most schools would be celebrating this. But this is the lowest number of players Bama's had drafted since 2016. Still, 2 first-rounders, Evan Neal and Jameson Williams, highlight this year's Bama draft class, as Neal was taken number 7 overall by the New York Giants, and Williams was selected number 12 overall by the Lions, who moved up in a trade with the Vikings to get the speedy wide receiver, even though he's coming off ACL surgery. Day 2 had Alabama guys going as well. Washington Commanders love Bama guys. They drafted Phidarian Mathis and Bryan Hodgson, the defensive tackle and the running back. The Houston Texans drafted both John Mechie, the wide receiver, and Christian Harris, the linebacker. On day 3, the Baltimore Ravens selected Jalen Armour Davis in the 5th round. And that was it as far as players being drafted. But along with the draftees, Alabama had several players sign as undrafted free agents immediately after the draft. Chris Owens signing with the Denver Broncos, and also, Chris Owens, I should say, signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris Allen signing with the Denver Broncos. Josh Jobe to the Eagles. LeBron Ray to the Patriots. And Slade Bolton, who everybody wanted to see go to the Patriots, wound up going to the Baltimore Ravens. All right, Ronnie, let's talk draft. And again, I want to keep this in perspective because 7 players total drafted is a lot for most schools. 2 in the first round. But for Nick Saban, it would be considered a little bit of a down draft, but I think that bodes well for next year because a lot of the top players on this year's past team are coming back for 2022.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I think there's probably 5 guys that could have declared early that came back, whether you're talking about Toa, Ekiyor, Battle, Helms, maybe DJ Dale. Those are guys that could have declared. I think they all made really good decisions, well-informed decisions to come back, Gary. So next year they'll be reflected in the draft. Alabama have a big year. Of course, obviously a lot of people think that Alabama could have 2 of the top 3 or 4 players when you talk about Bryce Young, Will Anderson next year. But overall this year I think it was a really good group. And consider this, though, Gary. The 2 previous years, Alabama had 10 first-rounders total. They've had 12 first-round selections over the last 3 drafts. Everybody talks about Georgia, and Georgia had a great draft. They've had 8 selected in the first round over the last 3 years. So still, when you look at the bigger picture, Alabama is the dominant team in terms of draft picks.
All right, Rod, Evan Neal goes number 7 overall with the Giants. He at one time was in conversation for the number 1 overall pick with the Jaguars. The Lions moved up. When Jameson Williams tore that ACL, people had him falling between 20 and 30, but common sense prevailed. He is ahead of schedule. He's the fastest player probably in the draft, so he goes 12 overall. We mentioned Mathis and Bryan Hodgson Jr. to the Commanders, Christian Harris and John Mechie to the Texans, and Jalen Armour Davis to the Ravens. Out of those 7 players, forget round, just who do you think maybe got the best value there as far as those Alabama players are concerned?
Well,
there's one guy you said, man, that seems like a great pick to me for that team. Who do you go with?
Well, I really like Phidarian Mathis because I think he's a guy that, you know, he's got the right mindset. He came here. He was a fairly highly recruited player, but Gary, just his work ethic, the things that he does, his character, I think all of those things. We saw him last year. We said before the season he was going to be the key on that defensive line. He was going to be the leader, and I think the Washington Redskins, with getting Phidarian Mathis,
Commanders. It happens.
Old habits are hard to break. But, you know, I think him and, you know, I was really – it makes you wonder if John Mechie hadn't hurt that knee, how high might he have gone?
Could have been first rounder.
You know?
And think about this on Mathis. He even said after the draft, when they interviewed him in Washington, his agent told him he'd be a 3rd or 4th rounder. He was a 2nd rounder. That's how highly they think of him. And I'm with you there. I think Phidarian Mathis brings so many intangibles to a team. All right, players that went undrafted. Jobe, Allen, Bolden, Ray, Owens, all signed as free agents. Daniel Wright still not signed with a team. Biggest surprise there among those players that didn't get drafted, in your opinion?
Well, you know, I really think, I thought Josh Jobe would probably get drafted. Now, I think his turf toe last year hurt him in the draft. There's probably some other things that I think that were questionable that maybe hurt hurt him off the field a little bit. I really feel badly because I think Chris Allen, being injured and having those injuries here during his career.
I think if he plays all year and plays the way he had started out against Miami, he might have been in conversations for a first-round pick. That's what a season-ending injury that early in the year can do to you.
Yeah,
right?
And he's had a history of injuries. He tore up his knee earlier in his career. So I really think that's – so you're really pulling for him with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and I think the Broncos, because of his talent level, if he can get healthy, they might have got a steal right there with him as a free agent. All right, Ryan, let's move on. Alabama cornerback Eli Ricks, who transferred to the Crimson Tide after last season from LSU, was arrested Sunday evening in Mississippi for speeding, no insurance, and a first offense possession of marijuana. The Mississippi Highway Patrol issued a statement yesterday that he was traveling 91 miles per hour in a 70-mile-per-hour zone. The former five-star recruit was booked into the Jones County Detention Center 5 p.m. Sunday evening by the Mississippi Highway Patrol. All right, now Ricks is a talented player, a 6'2" cornerback from California. He started his career at LSU, where he was an all-SEC freshman and freshman All-America. He announced his desire to go in the portal about a month after LSU said that Ed Orgeron wouldn't come back as head coach. He winds up here at Alabama. With Alabama losing Josh Jobe and Jalen Armour-Davis to the NFL, he's competing for a starting cornerback position here. And just your takeaway. Listen, kids make mistakes. I understand it. But all of the things that Alabama does to educate these guys, all of the speakers, all of the counseling that they give them, and the fact that former Alabama wide receiver Henry Ruggs, that tragedy in Las Vegas, is a reminder, but you can't be with him 24 hours a day. Now his main concern probably is not starting cornerback. It's getting back in the good graces of Nick Saban and still being a part of the program. Yeah, it'll be handled internally. I mean, there's always things that he's going to have to do to get back in those good graces, Gary. And, I think that Elias Ricks will certainly do those things. He'll position himself to get back and do the things he's supposed to do. But you're right. I mean, he just made a mistake, and he's going to learn from it. Yeah, hopefully he will, because, again, that's a litany of things there, Marijuana possession, driving 91 miles per hour, and not having insurance. That's kind of a trifecta that you don't want. So, yeah, he'll either learn from it and come through it and be better for it, or he won't, and he probably won't be part of the program in the fall. So we'll see what happens with Elias Ricks, but hopefully he'll take this, be better for it, and he's a really good football player that could help Alabama in 2022. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Nick Saban was in Birmingham for the first ever Nick Saban Legacy Award ceremony on Monday night. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. And one Alabama assistant coach on the basketball side has been recognized as a guy maybe that is in line to become a head coach somewhere. We will explain when we come back. And a little bit later on, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us at the address on your screen, or you can even tweet at us. Use the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television, brought to you by Don Staley and all the great folks at Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Well, Alabama basketball has reached the NCAA tournament the last two seasons, the Sweet 16 2 seasons ago, and then made the tournament this past season as well. And a media outlet believes that success should create an opportunity for one of Tide head coach Nate Oates' assistant coaches. Hoop Herald, a basketball Twitter account, listed Alabama assistant coach Bryan Hodgson as a coach who is ready to make the step to becoming a head coach. Hodgson has been with the Crimson Tide since Nate Oates arrived from Buffalo, and he was with Buffalo with Coach Notes before that. He is certainly partly responsible for the highly ranked recruiting classes that Alabama has had in Tuscaloosa over the last couple of seasons, along with Antoine Petway. He's helped bring in the likes of J.D. Davison, Jaden Shackelford, Jaden Bradley, Brandon Miller, and Josh Primo, who, of course, is already in the NBA. So, Rodney, this is positive publicity. Again, Nate Oates is the head coach, but certainly Bryan Hodgson is a valuable asset to the program, and good that he's getting recognized. Well, I think generally speaking, when you're talking about having a staff, you want to know if it's strong, is how much interest do you have from other schools? And you mentioned his recruiting success, Gary. That certainly will attract schools very quickly if you can recruit the way he's recruited. Yeah, of course, Alabama, Hodgson, Petway, Oates, all now recruiting in a very different landscape, Rodney, and that is the NIL era. Listen, you can have a great program, you can be terrific coaches, but this is changing the landscape and doing it quickly. Alabama basketball, has got a great class already signed, but going forward, this is going to impact recruiting for Alabama and all these programs.
It really is, and it's going to be interesting the direction of NIL overall, Gary, because there's a lot of discussion about what's next for NIL. How's it going to be governed and ruled? Some of the things that have been happening, because it seems like schools are playing on different grounds. Not everyone's handling it the same way, so there's a lot of unknown out there about the NIL, and it's certainly affecting recruiting.
Yeah, but Bryan Hodgson, one of the best recruiters, and he probably will be a head coach at some point in the future, leaving Alabama, but Alabama happy to have him right now. All right, it's time now for Coach Talk. Alabama head football coach Nick Saban has always got something going on, it seems. He was in Birmingham on Monday evening for the first ever Nick Saban Legacy Award ceremony. We'll have more on that in a moment. But during his media Q&A before the event, he was asked to share what he would like his legacy to be regarding the players that he's coached.
I think there's a lot of life lessons that you can learn in athletics, and hopefully they can carry those things over into things that are going to help them be, better parents, do a better job someday, have more success in their career, have a happier, more self-fulfilled life. So anytime a player comes back and says, Coach, you really made an impact on me, I think that's what I'd like my legacy to be.
I think that goes for most coaches. They're still in it, I think, for the right reasons, despite all the money. The first ever Nick Saban Legacy Award ceremony honored Steve Spurrier and the late Eddie Robinson. Jam-packed crowd at the club on Monday night. This is just a great award, and for Coach Saban to be a part of it. And, again, he just does so many good things off the field. Spurrier, of course, was a coach at Duke, Florida, and South Carolina. He led Florida to the first national championship program history in 1996. He still looks like the old ball coach. Also won 6 SEC titles, and the legendary late Eddie Robinson won 408 games at Grambling, and was known as a terrific gentleman as well. Good stuff right there last night in Birmingham. Well, coming up on Tider Insider TV, Alabama baseball was in South Carolina this past weekend, and man, did that series go south for the Tide. And up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number, 205-348-9882. TITV at WVOA23.com is the email address. As I said, you can tweet at us, use the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. Going into the series in Columbia against South Carolina, Alabama baseball had not been swept all season, so you certainly didn't expect it to happen against a team that had just 6 conference wins coming in. But that's baseball. Bama lost all 3 games against the Gamecocks, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It really hurts Alabama as the Tide is battling to get into a regional for the second straight season. Drops them below 500 in conference play with just 3 series left. Just not a lot of positive that you can take away from that series. I mean, losing 3 to a team that I quite frankly thought Alabama was better than. So a lot of pressure this weekend at home against LSU. Welcome back into Tider Insider TV. Alabama softball, meanwhile, had the weekend off, and they close out the regular season this weekend at home against Missouri. And on Saturday night, head coach Patrick Murphy will be inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. And then, of course, next week, the SEC tournament in Gainesville. All right, time to head out on the phone lines. And Johnny over in Bessemer leads us off tonight. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, Gary, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, you the man, bro.
Yeah, I'm the man. Be the man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, I was going to come to the AEA game, but I didn't get a chance to make it. How Alabama did in the AEA game, brother?
All right, John, I thought Alabama looked good. I mean, of course, Alabama versus Alabama, the good guys are going to win either way. But I thought that first-team defense, Rodney, we've talked about it on the show since the game. They're going to be difficult to block. They were difficult for Alabama in that game, and they're going to be difficult for the opponent. So a lot of great players, a lot of talent everywhere. But that first-team defense, it's reminding some people of some of those defenses, of the past around here under Nick Saban that were awfully salty.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to have a great pass rush. I think maybe the best since 2016. Will Anderson kind of pointed that out afterwards. And I think, too, John, really the thing that impressed me, Gary, we talked about this, was some of the young players on defense. A lot of young talent. It was pretty evident on 8A. But listen, the offense, I think, will be explosive again. I think once they get those tackle spots settled, once they get those kind of Bryce gets on the same page with all these receivers. And Jahmyr Gibbs, hopefully Jace McClellan will be back. I think Trey Sanders ran it really well. So I think this offense has a chance to be very explosive as well.
Yeah, John, the best program in the country has a chance again to be the best team in the country in 2022 and bring home another national championship. This team has that potential. All right, let's get to an email. The email question of the day is brought to you by KDM Services. Serving your family like our family. For all your heating and air conditioning needs, KDM Services. Who do you think will be the starting running back from Wes in Helena? This is a question I think we've had a time or two, but it's a great question, Rod, because so much talent. You mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs. Jace McClellan comes back. Roydell Williams comes back from injury. Both those two, ACLs. You got Trey Sanders. You got the freshman Jamarian Miller. Once again, this is a deep and talented running back room, but only one guy can be the starter. Who do you think it'll be?
Well, here's the thing. Nick Saban always uses multiple backs.
That's
We're
right.
going to see 2 or 3 backs for sure, I think. Would not surprise me if we see Jace, Jahmyr, and Trey Sanders. I'm not ruling out Roydell, just don't know exactly what his status is in terms of the recovery of his injury. I think he's doing well based on things we've heard. And Jamarian Miller's a really good-looking true freshman. I thought he looked good in the 8A game. But, those first 3 guys, Gary, I could see them all 3 getting their opportunities. And listen, they're a little bit different. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs brings that explosiveness, that he's a type of guy, he can take it 80 on any play. And we saw that in the 8A game.
Yeah, we sure did. Playmakers, man. That's what it's all about. Whether it's running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, you got to have them on offense in this day and age, and Alabama certainly looks to have its share. Well, still to come on TITV, Alabama women's tennis is heading out on the road for the regional. We'll preview that when we come back. And more phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number 205-348-9882, the email address on your screen. And we'd love to hear from more of Tider Insider Nation right after this. Stay with us. Alabama women's tennis will make its 17th appearance in an NCAA regional when the Crimson Tide travels to Miami to face UCF in the opening round. The Miami regional will also include the host Hurricanes and Stetson. It's the 3rd straight season that Alabama has earned a regional bid, making it in 2019 and 2021 as well. There was no postseason in 2020 due to COVID, of course. Alabama's ranked 40th in the latest rankings with a record of 15-11. Congratulations to Coach Mines and Alabama women's tennis for making it to the postseason. And welcome back in to TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Phone lines are open, 205-348-9882. Let's take an email right now. And this is going to come from Sharon in Dora. And the question is, why has KB Sides been better at Arkansas than at Alabama? Well, Sharon, I know she's from up there in that neck of the woods, went to Summerton Christian. She was good at Alabama. Okay, first let's say that. It's not like she went to Arkansas and suddenly became a good player. She was already good at Alabama. Was off to a hot start 2 years ago, Rodney, when COVID, interrupted the season. And then last year, probably didn't play as well as she would have hoped. She had that extra COVID year. She took it. She transferred to Arkansas. And yes, she's lighting it up. There's no other way around it. She's one of the top home run hitters in the league. She's a great, great, great outfielder. So I just think she was a good player all along. She had one more go around. She went to Arkansas with something to prove, and she's been phenomenal. But that is also a testament to the program here at Alabama, which helped develop her. So thanks for that email. No phone call, so let's get to one more email question. This is from Travis in Northport. What is Alabama baseball's ceiling this year? That's a great question. Well, ceiling, I think, Rod, is an NCAA regional. Anything above that would be awesome, but I don't see Alabama. First of all, if they get into a regional, they're going to be on the road, like last year, probably going to be a 3 seed. If you could get to a super regional, that'd be awesome. But I think the ceiling is the regional, and anything beyond that is great. Unfortunately, they're going to have to battle to get in a regional.
Yeah, they are. And, Gary, we had talked about it way early in the season, even before the season, that it was taking the next step. Mm-hmm. And, again, if you get into a regional, great. If you don't, you took a step backwards.
Let's get out on the phone line, and Reg is with us over in Birmingham. Hey, Reg.
Hello, guys. Let me ask you, there's been some brief talk about canceling the Tennessee game with Alabama. Do you think that rivalry will ever end? It'd be the dumbest thing they've ever done if they cancel that game.
Well, if it happens, Reg, it's going to be in the future, not in the immediate. First of all, Tennessee, Oklahoma and Texas aren't even in the league yet. So nothing will happen until then at the earliest. I do think they're going to look at some other – there's going to be 16 teams. I think they may look at pods. I don't know if in the future they'll play every year, but I'm sure that both schools will say, hey, this is a traditional rivalry we'd like to keep if possible.
You think Tennessee really wants to keep it?
I do. I do. Yeah. I think they want to one day taste victory again, Rod. Yeah. And with NIL, it looks like they're going all in.
They are. I mean, wow. I mean, again, who knows how it's going to play out? We'll just have to see. Gary talked about the pods. I mean, there could be a lot of different changes that we're not, don't know, not privy to right now. But, hopefully, I'll tell you this, Reg, and I know you went to school at Tennessee, but you're a big Bama guy. Listen, I hope that they do continue this series. It's been a great series, obviously, and especially the last 15 years has been really good for Alabama. So, I hope they continue it.
All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails. Still to come, find out what Alabama head coach Nick Saban has in common with the #1 ranked overall recruit in the class of 2023, prep quarterback Arch Manning. Got you hooked, don't we? Stay tuned. We'll find out next when we come back to TITV on a pretty evening in Tuscaloosa. Stay with us.
I told Arch the other day I was proud of him. I saw a list of the top 10 players that he gave their weight, school, blah, 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 and their Twitter account, and he's the only one that didn't have a Twitter account. So I said I was proud of him for that. So.
About his grandson Arch, #1 ranked high school quarterback in the country, being recruited by Alabama and many others, and he doesn't have a Twitter. Neither does Nick Saban. Connection there, Rod. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV presented by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Don't forget, if you missed any of the show or you just want to watch it again, it'll come your way tonight at 10:30 following the news at 10, or you can find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with video highlights from the 33rd annual Mal Moore Memorial Golf Tournament, which was held last Friday at North River Yacht Club. All the proceeds from the event go to the Boys and Girls Clubs of West Alabama. This is part of Mal Moore's legacy. Greg Byrne and his wife Regina host it now, but that tournament goes on doing great work for the youth of West Alabama. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday night on TITV.